The gun felt cold in Marcus Cole's hand. 5 years since he had held one. 5 years of pretending to be someone else. But the three men standing between him and the children left no room for pretense. His voice came out steady, almost bored. "You don't want to do this." The lead man laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the warehouse walls. "And who's going to stop us? You, a maintenance worker." Marcus's response was a bullet through the man's shoulder before he finished the sentence. The other two reached for their weapons. Neither cleared leather. 23 seconds. 3 men down. 0 casualties on his side. Muscle memory, Marcus thought, was a dangerous thing. Behind him, 2 children huddled together. Lily, his 7-year-old daughter, clutched Emma Sterling's hands so tight their knuckles had gone white. Both girls stared at him with eyes that had seen too much in the span of a single day. Lily's voice trembled when she finally spoke. "Daddy, who are you?" The question hit harder than any bullet ever had. Marcus lowered the weapon, feeling the weight of everything he had buried rise to the surface. The quiet life he had constructed so carefully, the anonymity, the routine, the deliberate invisibility, all of it crumbled in the smoke-filled air of that warehouse. The shadows from Horason had found him at last. 12 hours earlier, the world had still made sense. 4:30 in the morning, Marcus's routine never varied. Black coffee check, Lily's breathing count, the bills he couldn't pay. The pre-dawn darkness wrapped around the small house like a shroud as he moved through each task with mechanical precision. $53. That was the distance between him and the street, between Lily and foster care, between everything he had promised Rachel and complete failure. He paused at Lily's doorway, watching the gentle rise and fall of her chest. The nebulizer hummed softly beside her bed, filling the room with medicated mist. Her asthma had been worse this month. The medication cost $400. The insurance covered nothing. Some equations had no solutions. By 5:30, Marcus was at Sterling Technologies, invisible in his maintenance uniform. The massive glass tower gleamed against the Portland skyline, a monument to wealth and power that existed in a different universe from his own. He pushed his cart through the executive corridors, emptying trash bins and replacing light bulbs, just another working poor nobody noticed. That invisibility was deliberate. 5 years ago, he had chosen this company, this city, this life of deliberate obscurity. Not because he needed the work, though he desperately did, but because of the woman whose name adorned the building. Victoria Sterling, CEO, widow of Michael Hayes. Michael, who had been closer than a brother. Michael, who had stayed behind in Horason to give the team time to escape. Michael, whose last words had been a promise Marcus could never break. He had kept his distance for 5 years, watching from the shadows, ensuring she was safe, without ever revealing himself. The occasional security sweep of her route home, the background checks on anyone who got too close, small interventions she never noticed, protection she never knew existed. Today that would change. Marcus was mopping the executive corridor when he heard the voice. Low, urgent, coming from around the corner. Professional instinct, the kind that never truly faded, made him pause, angling his body to catch the words. A man in an expensive suit stood by the window phone pressed to his ear. Tall, silver hair, a faint scar on his left cheek. Everything about him screamed money and power. But Marcus's trained eye caught something else, the subtle bulge of a concealed weapon, the way his eyes swept the corridor before each sentence. The accident happens tonight. Sterling won't survive. When she's gone, the company falls to us. Marcus's grip tightened on the mop handle until his knuckles went white. The mountain road, the curve by mile marker 7. Our people will handle the rest. The man ended the call and walked away, footsteps fading into the morning quiet. Marcus stood frozen, heart pounding against his ribs. He knew that face. 5 years of trying to forget, and he knew it anyway. Conrad Bishop, former CIA, the man who had sold their position in Horason. The man whose betrayal had turned a routine extraction into a massacre. The man who had, in every way that mattered, killed Michael Hayes. And now Bishop was targeting Michael's widow. The mop clattered against the tile as Marcus abandoned his cart. His mind raced through options, calculating distances and timelines. The mountain road. Tonight. Mile marker 7. He could call the police, report what he heard. But what evidence did he have? The word of a maintenance worker against a man with CIA connections and bottomless resources? He could warn Victoria directly, but that would mean revealing himself, explaining how he knew, opening doors, that had been sealed with blood and grief. Or he could do what he had been trained to do, what he had sworn never to do again. Some promises, Michael had said, outlive us. Marcus walked away from his cart, his uniform, his carefully constructed invisibility. Whatever happened next, the maintenance worker was already dead. The storm arrived with the darkness, as if the weather itself sensed what was coming. Rain hammered Portland in sheets, turning streets into rivers, invisibility into memory. Marcus followed Victoria's car from a distance, his old pickup truck struggling against the wind. She took the mountain road at 7:15 right on schedule. The woman was nothing if not predictable, a trait that made protecting her easier and targeting her simpler in equal measure. Mile marker 5. The road narrowed, twisting between walls of ancient pines. Marcus's headlights carved pale tunnels through the deluge. Mile marker 6, his hands tightened on the wheel. Somewhere ahead, Bishop's people were waiting. Mile marker 7. He saw it happen in fragments, headlights, in his rear view moving too fast. A black SUV running dark, closing the distance to Victoria's sedan like a predator scenting blood. The impact when it came was brutal, metal screaming against metal as the SUV rammed her bumper. Victoria's car spun on the wet asphalt tires, fighting for purchase they couldn't find. It careened toward the guardrail, toward the cliff beyond, toward an ending that would look exactly like an accident. Marcus floored the accelerator. His truck slammed into the SUV's flank just as it lined up for a second strike. The collision threw him against the steering wheel airbag, deploying in a white explosion, but his eyes never left Victoria's sedan. It had stopped spinning, nose crumpled against a tree, but not over the edge. Not falling, not burning, not yet. The SUV reversed tires, spraying gravel, and fled into the storm. Marcus caught the license plate in his mirrors, memorized it in the space between heartbeats, then threw open his door and ran. Rain soaked through his clothes in seconds. He reached Victoria's car as smoke began to rise from the crumpled hood, found the window intact but the door jammed. Inside, she was slumped against her seatbelt, blood running from a gash on her forehead. Marcus drove his elbow through the glass. The skin split, blood mixing with rainwater, but he barely felt it. He cut the seatbelt with his pocket knife and pulled her free just as the first flames licked out from beneath the hood. She collapsed against his chest, trembling, gasping for breath. The expensive suit was ruined, the white shirt beneath stained with blood. But her eyes, dark, sharp, even through the pain, found his face. "Help me, please. I've got you." He lifted her, carrying her toward his truck as the sedan's engine caught fire behind them. "You're going to be okay." The hospital was miles away. Half the city was flooded, roads closed, emergency services overwhelmed. Marcus made the calculation in seconds and found only one answer. "My house is close. I can help you there." She nodded weakly, then lost consciousness in his arms. Marcus drove through the storm with one hand on the wheel and one eye on the woman beside him. Her breathing was shallow but steady. The head wound had stopped bleeding. She would survive if he could keep her hidden long enough to figure out what came next. His house appeared through the rain, a worn wooden structure with peeling paint and a crooked fence, unremarkable in every way. He carried Victoria inside, laid her on the only bed, and began assessing her injuries with hands that remembered exactly how to do this. Mild concussion, laceration requiring stitches, possible bruised ribs. Nothing life-threatening, but nothing to dismiss either. He worked quickly, cleaning the wound, closing it with neat sutures from the military kit he had never been able to throw away. 5 years since he had done this, but the muscle memory held true. Some skills wrote themselves into bone. When he finished, he pulled a blanket over her and stepped back. She looked smaller and sleep vulnerable in a way the CEO of a billion-dollar company never appeared in photographs. Just a woman, just Michael's wife, just someone who needed protecting. A small voice came from the doorway. "Wait, Daddy?" Lily stood in her pajamas, clutching her stuffed bear, eyes wide with questions she didn't know how to ask. Marcus crossed to her, kneeling to bring himself to her level. "It's okay, sweetheart. The lady was hurt. She needs help. Is she going to be okay?" "I think so, but she needs to rest." Lily peered past him at the unconscious woman. "She's pretty, like a princess in the stories." Despite everything, Marcus smiled. "Go back to bed, baby. We'll talk more in the morning." "Okay, Daddy." She hugged him tight, her small arm barely reaching around his neck. "You're the best daddy in the whole world." The words hit him somewhere deep in the place where he kept the promises he had made to Rachel before she died. "Protect our daughter. Give her a good life. Don't let the darkness touch her." He had tried. God, how he had tried. "I love you, Lily." "Love you too." She padded back to her room and Marcus returned to his vigil. Outside, the storm raged on. Inside, the woman who held the key to everything slept without knowing who had saved her or why. Some secrets, he decided, could wait until morning. Dawn came slowly, the storm retreating, as if exhausted by its own violence. Marcus sat in the living room, watching light creep across the worn floorboards, running through everything that would happen next. Bishop knew the assassination had failed. He would try again today, tomorrow, whenever opportunity presented itself. Victoria Sterling was a target now, whether she understood it or not. And Marcus had painted a target on himself by intervening. The SUV's driver had seen his truck probably at his face. Bishop would connect the dots eventually. The maintenance worker who happened to be in the right place at the right time. The coincidence too convenient to ignore. His carefully constructed anonymity was crumbling by the hour. Movement from the bedroom interrupted his thoughts. Marcus rose, positioning himself where he could see without being seen. Old habits impossible to break, and watched Victoria emerge. She stood in the doorway wearing his white shirt. Her black hair was tousled, her face pale, but alert, and those sharp eyes were taking in every detail of the small house with the precision of someone used to evaluating assets. The kitchen, the worn furniture, the photograph on the wall, Marcus with Rachel's baby Lily between them, captured in a moment of happiness that felt like another lifetime. Victoria's gaze settled on him, and something shifted in her expression. Recognition perhaps, though not of his face. Recognition of what he was. "You're the one who pulled me out." "Yes. And brought me here." "Seems safer than the hospital." She touched the bandage on her forehead, fingers tracing the neat stitches beneath. "This is professional work. Military." It wasn't a question. Marcus didn't answer. Victoria's eyes swept the room again, cataloging, calculating. They stopped on something he had forgotten to hide, the metal compass sitting on the kitchen table. Its lid open, the inscription visible in the morning light. Her breath caught. She moved toward it as if pulled by invisible strings, picking it up with trembling hands. "Where did you get this?" The words came out raw, barely controlled. Marcus saw tears gathering in her eyes and knew he had run out of time for secrets. "It belonged to someone I served with." "I know who it belonged to." Her voice cracked on the words. "This was my husband's. Michael never let it out of his sight. She stopped, composing herself with visible effort. "He died in Afghanistan, Khorasan province, 5 years ago." Marcus felt the weight of 5 years pressing down on him, demanding truth. "I know." "How do you know?" "Because I was there. Michael was my team leader, my best friend." He met her eyes, letting her see everything he had hidden for half a decade. "And he died saving my life." The silence stretched between them, filled with ghosts neither could escape. Victoria's hand clenched around the compass, knuckles white. "You were in Khorasan with Michael." "Yes." "And this," she held up the compass. "He gave it to you. The night before he died. He made me promise to look after you and Emma if anything happened to him." Something broke in Victoria's expression, the CEO armor cracking to reveal the widow beneath. 5 years. You've been watching us for 5 years. From a distance, making sure you were safe. You work at my company, in maintenance." The realization dawned across her face. "That's not a coincidence." "No." "Who are you?" Before Marcus could answer, Victoria's phone buzzed in her ruined jacket. She pulled it out, checked the screen, and her face went pale. "Unknown number." Her finger hovered over the accept button. "Don't." But she had already answered. The voice that came through was distorted, mechanical, but Marcus recognized the cadence anyway. He had heard it give orders in 100 briefings. He had heard it betray his team to their deaths. "Mrs. Sterling, so glad you survived your little accident. Consider it a warning." Victoria's hand trembled. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows exactly what your company is worth. Someone who's been planning this acquisition for a very long time." A cold laugh. "You have something I want. The prototype your husband died protecting." The technology that should have been mine 5 years ago. Marcus moved closer, signaling Victoria to keep the caller talking. I don't know what you're talking about. Of course you do. Project Sentinel. Michael's little pet project. The defense contract worth billions. I've wanted it for years and your refusal to sell has become inconvenient. I'll never sell to you. Then I'll take it another way. Your daughter Emma, she's at St. Catherine's, isn't she? Class with Miss Harmony? Such a pretty girl. It would be tragic if something happened to her. All the blood drained from Victoria's face. Don't you dare touch my daughter. Resign from Sterling Technologies. Transfer controlling interest to Bishop Defense. Do it within 48 hours or Emma pays the price. The voice hardened. And Mrs. Sterling, tell whoever's listening that I remember Horrison too. Hello, Marcus. Been a long time. The line went dead. Victoria stared at the phone as if it had transformed into a snake. Her mouth opened, closed, opened again. He knows about Emma. He knows where she goes to school. He knows, I heard. You know him. He called you by name. Marcus felt the past rising up, demanding acknowledgement. Conrad Bishop, former CIA. He sold our position in Horrison to enemy combatants. That's why we were ambushed. That's why Michael died. And now he wants my company. And he wants the technology Michael protected, whatever Project Sentinel is. It's a defensive weapons system, non-lethal crowd control military applications worth billions in government contracts. Victoria's voice steadied as she shifted into CEO mode, processing the crisis like any other business problem. Michael developed it. He died keeping it out of the wrong hands. And Bishop is the wrong hands. The wrongest. She looked at him with new eyes, seeing past the maintenance uniform to the soldier beneath. Can you stop him? It was the question Marcus had been avoiding for 5 years. Could he go back to what he was? Could he pick up the weapons he had sworn to leave behind? Lily's face flashed through his mind. Her laughter, her trust, her innocent belief that Daddy could fix anything. If he did this, if he became the weapon again, he might lose her forever. But if he didn't, Bishop would take everything. Victoria, Emma. Eventually, Lily too, once he realized Marcus was involved. Some choices weren't choices at all. I can try. Victoria's phone buzzed again. A text this time from her security team, Emma safe at school. 2 men spotted watching gates. Advised. Marcus read it over her shoulder. They're already in position. We need to move. What do we do? First we get Emma, then we find somewhere safe to plan. He met her eyes, letting her see the soldier instead of the janitor. I need you to trust me. Can you do that? Victoria looked at the compass in her hand at the inscription Michael had carved years ago. Some promises outlive us. Michael trusted you with his life, with my life, with Emma's. She closed her fingers around the metal. If that was enough for him, it's enough for me. Marcus nodded once, then moved to the hidden compartment beneath the floorboards. He had promised himself he would never open it again. Promises, it seemed, were made to be broken. The Glock was exactly where he had left it, along with 2 magazines, a K-bar knife, and the black tactical clothes he had worn in another life. He dressed quickly, efficiently, feeling the familiar weight settle onto his body like a second skin. When he turned around, Victoria was watching him with an expression he couldn't read. You really were Special Forces. Green Beret, 5th Group, 12 years. He checked the chamber, confirmed the load. I got out after Horrison, thought I could leave it behind. Can anyone leave something like that behind? Marcus thought of Rachel dying slowly in the hospital bed, making him promise to be better. Thought of Lily believing her father was just a repairman. Thought of Michael bleeding out in the Afghan dust, whispering about promises that outlived the men who made them. No, he admitted, not really. He left Lily with Mrs. Chen, the elderly neighbor who watched her when Marcus worked late. The woman asked no questions, a kindness he couldn't afford to acknowledge. Every minute counted now. St. Catherine's Primary School sat in a quiet residential neighborhood, all brick walls and iron gates and the illusion of safety. Marcus parked 2 blocks away and assessed the situation through binoculars. 2 men in a black sedan, positioned 50 meters from the main entrance. Standard surveillance formation. They weren't trying to grab Emma yet, just watching, reporting, waiting for Bishop's order. That would change the moment Bishop learned his warning call had failed to produce results. Stay here, Marcus told Victoria. If anything happens to me, call this number. He handed her a card with Colonel Hayes' contact information. Tell him Operation Citadel is compromised. He'll know what to do. Marcus. I'll be back with Emma, I promise. He slipped out of the truck and moved through the morning shadows circling toward the sedan from its blind spot. The two men inside were focused on the school gates, confident in their anonymity, unaware that the hunter had become the hunted. Marcus reached the driver's door without being detected. He tapped on the window. The driver lowered the glass, irritation flashing across his face. What do you want? You're on school property, near children. Marcus's voice was calm, almost conversational. I'm asking you nicely to leave. The passenger laughed. And who's going to make us you? The question had become a refrain in Marcus's life. Everyone underestimated the quiet man in modest clothes. Everyone assumed strength required display. They were always wrong. Marcus moved. The driver's door flew open, the man behind it yanked out before he could react. Wrist lock, twist leverage. His own momentum carried him face first into the hood, unconscious before he hit the metal. 2 seconds. The passenger reached for the gun beneath his jacket. Too slow. Marcus was already through the door, palm strike to the solar plexus, knee to the face as the man doubled over. Weapon stripped and cleared before the body hit the ground. 4 seconds total. The third man there was always a backup, came around the corner with his pistol already drawn. But Marcus had anticipated that too. He closed the distance before the man could aim, trapped the gun hand, redirected, disarmed. 3 precise strikes, throat, kidney, temple. 7 seconds. 3 professionals neutralized without a shot fired. Marcus knelt beside the leader, the one who had asked who would stop them. Go back to Bishop. Tell him Emma Sterling is off limits. Tell him if anyone comes near her again, I'll find them. He leaned closer, letting the man see something cold and final in his eyes. And then I'll find him. Who are you? Someone who should have stayed retired. He left them in the parking lot and walked toward the school, moving like a man with nothing to fear. The receptionist tried to stop him at the entrance, something about protocols and sign-in sheets, but one look at his face changed her mind. Emma was in her classroom, finger painting, rainbows, blissfully unaware that her world had nearly ended. Marcus watched her through the window for a moment, seeing Michael in the shape of her eyes, the stubborn set of her jaw. This was what Michael had died for. This innocent life, the second chance at happiness that Victoria had built from the ashes of her grief. Marcus would protect it with everything he had. 20 minutes later, they were back at his house, Marcus, Victoria, Emma, and Lily. The two girls had taken to each other immediately, comparing stuffed animals and trading stories about their schools, with the easy trust that only children possessed. Victoria watched them from the kitchen doorway, her expression somewhere between wonder and terror. They have no idea what's happening. Good, let's keep it that way. For how long Bishop won't stop? You said it yourself, he's been planning this for years. Then we plan better. Marcus spread a map across the kitchen table, marking locations with a red pen. Bishop has resources, money connections, but he has weaknesses too. Like what? Arrogance. He thinks he's smarter than everyone else. That makes him predictable. Marcus circled a building on the map. His company headquarters. State-of-the-art security, but I know the layout. I did a threat assessment for a contractor who bid on their system 3 years ago. You've been preparing for this. I've been preparing for something, didn't know it would be this. He looked at her, seeing the exhaustion and fear she was fighting to hide. Victoria, I need you to understand something. This isn't going to be clean. Bishop has already proven he'll target children. He'll use every dirty trick in the book. And you, Marcus thought about the question about what it would cost to answer honestly. I'll do whatever it takes to keep you and the girls safe. Whatever it takes, when the words hung in the air between them, heavy with implications neither wanted to examine too closely. Victoria's phone rang. She checked the screen and frowned. It's Eleanor, my stepmother. Answer it. We need to know if Bishop has reached out to other family members. Victoria accepted the call, putting it on speaker. Eleanor Sterling's voice filled the kitchen, sharp with the particular brand of disapproval that only old money could produce. Victoria, what on earth is happening? Nathan called me saying you missed the board meeting, that there are rumors about an accident. I'm fine, Eleanor. Something came up. Something came up. You're the CEO of a billion-dollar company. You don't get to have things come up. The board is concerned. Conrad Bishop is concerned. He's been asking questions. Marcus caught Victoria's eyes, shaking his head slightly. Don't mention Bishop, not yet. They didn't know how deep his influence reached. Tell the board I'll address their concerns tomorrow. And Eleanor, keep Emma home from school. There's been a security concern. A pause. What kind of security concern? The kind I'm handling. Just do it. Please. The line went dead without a goodbye. Victoria stared at the phone, her jaw tight. Eleanor has never liked me. Thinks I married above my station, that Michael's death should have freed me from the Sterling name. Will she cooperate? For Emma's sake, yes. She's cold, but she loves her granddaughter. Marcus filed that information away, adding it to the mental map of alliances and threats he was building. Eleanor Sterling might be an ally or an enemy, time would tell. Lily's voice drifted in from the living room, high and clear. My daddy is the bravest person in the whole world. He can fix anything. Emma's response was equally certain. My mommy is the strongest. She runs a whole company. Maybe they can be friends, like us. Marcus and Victoria exchanged a look, something passing between them that neither had words for. Two broken families drawn together by violence and secrets and the ghost of a man they had both loved in different ways. Some promises outlive us. The question was whether they would survive the keeping. Night fell over Portland, bringing with it a stillness that felt like the calm before battle. Marcus sat in the dark living room, running through scenarios while the rest of the house slept. Bishop would escalate. That was certain. The failed assassination, the neutralized surveillance team, these were setbacks, not defeats. A man like Bishop didn't accept setbacks. He responded with overwhelming force. Marcus had maybe 48 hours before that force arrived. 48 hours to find evidence, build a case, and take down a man who had evaded justice for years. The odds were not in his favor. But then they never had been. His phone buzzed. A text from a number he hadn't used in 5 years, routed through 3 different servers to mask its origin. Heard you came out of retirement. Need to talk. Same place as before. H. Colonel Hayes, his old commanding officer. The only person in the military who knew the full truth about Horrison. Marcus typed a response, tomorrow. 0600, the reply came instantly. Come alone. This is bigger than Bishop. Bigger than Bishop. The words sent a chill down Marcus's spine. He had assumed this was about revenge, about unfinished business from a failed mission 5 years ago. What if it was something more? He closed the phone and leaned back, staring at the ceiling. In the next room, Lily slept peacefully, unaware that her father was about to drag them all into a war. Rachel's voice echoed in his memory, weak and fading, but still fierce. Protect our daughter. Give her a good life. I'm trying, Marcus whispered to the empty room. God help me, I'm trying. But some promises he was beginning to understand could only be kept in blood. The compass sat on the table beside him, its inscription catching the moonlight. Marcus picked it up, feeling the weight of Michael's last gift, and made a decision. He would meet Hayes. He would learn what Bishop was really after. And then he would end this not just for Victoria and Emma, but for Lily, for Rachel's memory, for the man who had died so that Marcus could live. Some debts could never be repaid, only honored. The night deepened around him, and Marcus Cole, maintenance worker, father soldier, began planning a war. The diner sat on the edge of Portland's industrial district, a relic from another era that survived on cheap coffee and cheaper rent. Marcus arrived at 5:45, 15 minutes early, and took the booth in the back corner where he could watch both entrances and keep the wall at his back. Old habits, impossible to break. Colonel David Hayes walked in at 6 on the dot, moving with the careful precision of a man whose body remembered combat even when his mind wanted to forget. Silver hair, cropped short, posture, still military perfect, despite the civilian closed eyes that swept the room exactly the way Marcus's had. He slid into the booth without greeting, ordered black coffee from the waitress, and waited until she was out of earshot before speaking. You look like hell, Cole. Been a long night. I heard. 3 of Bishop's men in the hospital, none of them talking. Impressive work for someone who's been pushing a mop for 5 years. Marcus didn't rise to the bait. Your message said this was bigger than Bishop. Explain. Hayes wrapped his hands around his coffee cup, staring into the dark liquid as if it held answers. What do you know about Project Sentinel? Defensive weapons system, non-lethal crowd control, worth billions in government contracts. That's the public story. The classified version is different. Hayes leaned forward, dropping his voice. Sentinel isn't just crowd control. It's an AI-integrated battlefield management system. Predictive targeting, autonomous defense protocols, the works. Whoever controls Sentinel controls the future of military technology, and Bishop wants it. Bishop has wanted it for years, but he's not working alone anymore. Hayes pulled a photograph from his jacket and slid it across the table. Recognize this man. Marcus studied the image, a distinguished-looking figure in an expensive suit photographed at what appeared to be a diplomatic function. Something about the face tugged at his memory, but he couldn't place it. Should I? In Viktor Demidov, Russian intelligence, officially retired, unofficially running one of the largest private military companies in Eastern Europe. Hayes's jaw tightened. He was the buyer in Horizon, the one Bishop sold our position to, the one who ordered the ambush that killed Michael. The name hit Marcus like a physical blow. 5 years of wondering who had been on the other end of Bishop's betrayal, and now he had a face. Demidov and Bishop are working together. Have been for years. Bishop provides access to American defense technology. Demidov provides financing and foreign buyers. Sentinel is their biggest score yet. Hayes retrieved the photograph. Victoria Sterling doesn't know it, but she's sitting on the most valuable piece of military hardware developed in the last decade. And some very dangerous people will kill anyone who stands between them and that technology. Marcus processed the information, fitting pieces into a puzzle he hadn't known existed. The accident wasn't just about removing Victoria, it was about creating chaos in the company. Exactly. With Victoria dead, the board would vote on new leadership. Bishop has been cultivating allies on that board for months. He'd install a puppet CEO, funnel Sentinel overseas, and disappear before anyone figured out what happened. But Victoria survived, which means they'll escalate. Bishop isn't patient, and Demidov is even less so. Hayes met Marcus's eyes, and for the first time, something like genuine concern showed in his expression. They won't just target Victoria now. They'll target everyone around her. Everyone she cares about. The words landed in Marcus's chest like stones. Lily's face flashed through his mind, her smile, her laughter, her absolute faith that Daddy could fix anything. How do I stop them? You can't, not alone. Hayes slid a card across the table. There's a task force being assembled. Joint FBI and military intelligence. They've been building a case against Bishop for 2 years, but they don't have enough to move. What you witnessed in Horizon could be the key. Marcus picked up the card, turning it over in his fingers. Agent Sarah Chen, Federal Bureau of Investigation. A phone number, a lifeline maybe, or another trap. Why should I trust this? Because I've spent 5 years trying to make Horizon right. Because Michael was my soldier and I failed him. Hayes's voice cracked on the words age and regret bleeding through the military composure. And because if you don't let someone help you, Bishop will destroy everything you're trying to protect. Marcus pocketed the card, made a decision he would either live to regret or die never knowing. I'll think about it. Think fast, you don't have much time. Hayes stood, dropping a 20 on the table. And Cole, watch your back. Bishop's reach is longer than you know. He walked out without looking back, leaving Marcus alone with cold coffee and colder truths. The drive back took 30 minutes, time Marcus used to run through contingencies. If Hayes was right and Marcus had no reason to doubt him, then Bishop's next move would be aimed at maximum pressure. Not Victoria directly, not yet. Someone easier to reach. Someone who mattered more. His phone rang as he pulled onto his street. Mrs. Chen's number. Mr. Cole, I'm sorry to bother you, but the school called. They said a man came to pick up Lily this morning. He had paperwork, said he was a friend of yours from the military. The world narrowed to a single point of focus. Marcus heard his own voice from very far away, asking questions he already knew the answers to. When? About an hour ago. They said everything looked proper, but then when I called the school to confirm, he didn't hear the rest. He was already out of the truck, running toward the house, toward the phone, and so toward the only thing that mattered. Lily, his daughter, gone. The call came 7 minutes later. 7 minutes of pacing, of planning, of feeling his heart tear itself apart with every passing second. When the phone finally rang, Marcus answered before the first tone finished. Hello, Marine. Bishop's voice. No distortion. This time the man wanted Marcus to know exactly who he was dealing with. Where is she? Safe for now. She's a sweet kid, Marcus. Very polite. Kept asking for her daddy. A soft laugh. It's almost a shame. If you hurt her, you'll what kill me. You had 5 years to do that, and you chose to push a mop instead. Bishop's voice hardened. Here's how this works. You have information I need. Testimony about Horace and about what Michael discovered before he died. Give me that and Lily goes home. Refuse and, well, asthma is such a delicate condition. Accidents happen. Marcus forced himself to breathe, to think, to be the soldier instead of the father. Emotion was the enemy now. Emotion would get Lily killed. What do you want? Everything you know about Michael's investigation? Every file, every contact, every piece of evidence he gathered before the mission went sideways. I know he told you things, Marcus. I know he trusted you with secrets. I don't have any files. Then you'd better find them. You have 6 hours. Bishop's voice dropped to a whisper. And Marcus, don't even think about calling for help. I have eyes everywhere. If I see police, FBI, anyone official, Lily pays the price. Your only chance is to come to me on loan. Where? Western Warehouse, Industrial District. Come at midnight. Bring what I want, and you get your daughter back. A pause. Oh, and I'll be keeping Mrs. Sterling as insurance, just in case you are thinking about doing something heroic. The line went dead. Marcus stood in the kitchen phone, still pressed to his ear, mind racing through options that didn't exist. 6 hours. No backup. His daughter and Victoria's life on the line, and Bishop holding all the cards. Except he wasn't. Not quite. Marcus crossed to the floorboard compartment, retrieved the rest of his equipment. The secondary pistol, the tactical knife, the gear he had sworn never to touch again. Bishop thought he was dealing with a broken soldier, a man who had traded his edge for domesticity. He didn't know that some blades never truly dulled, they just waited for a reason to cut. Marcus began to plan. Victoria found him 2 hours later cleaning weapons with the mechanical efficiency of a man preparing for war. She stood in the doorway, Emma asleep in the next room, watching him with eyes that held more understanding than he expected. They took Lily. Not a question. She had figured it out from the silence, from the tension radiating off him like heat from a fire. Yes. And they want something from you. Something about Michael. Marcus set down the pistol, met her gaze. Bishop thinks Michael told me things before he died. Secrets about Project Sentinel, about the investigation he was running. He's right. What secrets? Evidence. Proof that Bishop was selling classified information to foreign powers. Michael documented everything: transactions, contacts, offshore accounts. He was building a case, planning to expose the whole network. Marcus's voice caught. That's why Bishop had to silence him. Why Horace happened the way it did. Victoria sank into a chair, the weight of revelation pressing her down. Michael knew. He knew he was being targeted. He knew it was coming. He just didn't know when or how. Marcus picked up the pistol again, resuming his work. The night before the mission, he gave me a backup, a drive with copies of everything. Told me to get it to the right people if anything happened to him. Do you still have it? Hidden. I never looked at it, never told anyone. Just kept it safe like he asked. Marcus finished with the weapon, slid it into the holster. That's what Bishop wants. The drive and my testimony about where it came from. With that, he could discredit Michael's entire investigation, make it disappear. And without it, he's vulnerable. The task force Hayes mentioned, they're close to moving on him, and one piece of solid evidence could bring the whole thing crashing down. Victoria was quiet for a long moment, processing, calculating. When she spoke again, her voice was steel. What's the plan? I go in alone, give him what he wants, get Lily, and get out. That's suicide. You know he won't let you walk away. Probably not. Marcus met her eyes, letting her see the truth he had been hiding from himself. But it's Lily. I'll risk anything for her. Including dying. Including dying. Victoria stood, crossed to where he sat, knelt before him so they were eye to eye. Michael made you promise to protect me and Emma. I'm making you promise something different. What? Come back. Whatever happens in that warehouse, whatever it takes, you come back. Her hand found his warm and strong. Lily needs her father. Emma needs someone who understands what it means to lose a parent. And she stopped, swallowed, continued. I've lost enough already. Don't add yourself to the list. The words hung between them, heavy with meaning neither was ready to fully acknowledge. Marcus looked at this woman, Michael's wife, Emma's mother, a strength disguised in silk, and felt something shift in his chest. I'll come back. Promise me. I promise. It was the second promise a dying man had asked him to keep. Marcus prayed he would live long enough to honor both. The remaining hours passed in preparation. Marcus studied satellite images of the warehouse district, identified entry points and exit routes, planned for contingencies he hoped wouldn't materialize. Victoria worked the phones quietly, alerting Eleanor to keep Emma safe, arranging for cover stories that would buy them time. At 10:30, Marcus made a call of his own. Agent Chen, this is Marcus Cole. Colonel Hayes gave me your number. Mr. Cole, I've been expecting your call. The voice on the other end was professional, controlled exactly what he needed. The colonel briefed me on your situation. Then you know I don't have time for bureaucracy. Bishop has my daughter. He's holding her at Western Warehouse. I'm going in at midnight. Alone, that's the only way. If he sees any sign of official presence, he kills her. Marcus kept his voice steady, but his heart was pounding. What I need is backup. Quiet backup. A team in position, ready to move once I have Lily clear. A pause. Paper rustling on the other end. I can have people in place by 11:30, but I need you to understand, once this goes active, there's no controlling the outcome. Bishop has resources, connections, people willing to die for him. So do I. Another pause, longer this time. Colonel Hayes said you were the best soldier he ever commanded. Said you pulled a team out of Horace when everyone else was dead or dying. That true enough. Then do what you do best, Mr. Cole. Get your daughter. Get yourself out. We'll handle the rest. Marcus ended the call and checked his watch. 90 minutes to midnight. 90 minutes to become someone he had buried 5 years ago. He looked at the photograph on the shelf, Rachel smiling, alive, trusting him to keep their family safe. Then at Victoria standing in the doorway, watching him with eyes that held more faith than he deserved. It's time. Victoria nodded, crossed to him, did something he didn't expect. She leaned in, pressed her lips to his cheek, lingered for a heartbeat longer than necessary. For luck, she whispered. Now go bring her home. Marcus walked out into the night, the weight of promises pressing against his chest, and began the longest drive of his life. Western Warehouse rose against the Portland skyline like a skeleton of steel and shadow. 3 stories of industrial decay, lit only by moonlight through shattered skylights. Marcus parked 2 blocks away and approached on foot, moving through the darkness with the patience of a predator. The perimeter was exactly what he expected. 4 guards, 2 on the main entrance, 2 roaming, amateur formations, predictable patterns. Bishop had hired muscle, not professionals. That would be his first mistake. Marcus circled to the east side, found the access point he had identified from the satellite images, a loading dock door, rusted but functional, hidden from the main sight lines. He picked the lock in 30 seconds and slipped inside. The interior was vast, cavernous, filled with abandoned machinery and stacked crates. Perfect for an ambush. Also perfect for someone who knew how to use shadows. Marcus moved through the space like a ghost, neutralizing threats as they appeared. The first guard never heard him coming, sleeper hold from behind, unconscious in seconds. The second went down to a precise strike to the nerve cluster behind the ear. The third reached for his radio before Marcus's knife found his hand, pinning it to the wooden crate behind him. Don't. The word was barely a whisper, but the threat behind it needed no volume. The guard nodded frantically, eyes white with fear. Where's the girl? 2nd floor, north corner. Bishop's up there too. Marcus removed the knife, delivered a knockout blow, and kept moving. 4 guards down, at least 2 more on the upper level, plus Bishop himself. The odds were improving. He found the stairs, ascended silently, emerged onto a catwalk that overlooked the main floor. From here, he could see everything, the cluttered space below, the office area in the north corner, the light spilling from a window that had to be his destination. And there, through the glass, he saw her. Lily sat in a metal chair, hands bound behind her eyes, red from crying, but jaw set in a stubborn line that made his heart swell with pride. 2 men flanked her, armed, alert. Bishop stood by the window, phone in hand, checking his watch. Marcus checked his own. 11:58. 2 minutes early. He could wait, play it safe, do the exchange the way Bishop expected, or he could be the soldier Michael remembered, the one who didn't wait, the one who acted. Marcus made his choice. The first guard died silently, knife across the throat before he knew anyone was there. The second spun at the sound of falling body, reached for his weapon, found Marcus's fist instead. Two precise strikes, solar plexus, to double him over temple, to put him down. 4 seconds, two more guards eliminated. Bishop turned at the commotion, eyes widening as Marcus stepped into the light. "Hello, Conrad." "You're early." Bishop's voice was calm, but his hand drifted toward the gun at his hip. "And you came without the files." "The files are safe, hidden, you'll never find them." Marcus advanced slowly, keeping his hands visible, watching for the tell that would signal Bishop's next move. "Let my daughter go. This is between us." "Between us," Bishop laughed, a cold sound without humor. "This stopped being between us when you crawled out of Horison alive. You were supposed to die in that ambush, Marcus. You and Michael both. Instead, he played hero, and you survived to become a witness. Is that what this is about, tying up loose ends? This is about evolution, about moving forward instead of clinging to the past." Bishop's hand closed on his weapon, drew it smoothly. "I'm offering you one last chance. Give me the location of Michael's files. Renounce everything you saw in Horison. Do that, and Lily lives. You have my word." "Your word." Marcus shook his head slowly. "Your word meant 6 good men dead in a valley that didn't even have a name. Your word meant Michael bleeding out in my arms while you counted your money. Michael was a fool. He actually believed in things honor, duty, country. Look where it got him. It got him remembered, loved, mourned." Marcus met Bishop's eyes, letting him see the cold fire burning behind them. "What do you think people will remember about you?" Bishop's finger tightened on the trigger. "I think they'll remember me as the man who won." The shot came from behind Marcus, from the shadows he hadn't cleared. Pain exploded through his shoulder, spinning him sideways, dropping him to one knee. Nathan Sterling stepped into the light, smoking pistol in hand. "Sorry, Cole, but Bishop made a very persuasive offer. Victoria's brother, the traitor they hadn't seen coming." Marcus pressed his hand against the wound, felt hot blood seeping through his fingers. The bullet had gone through clean, painful, but not fatal. He could still function. He could still fight, but the odds had just shifted dramatically against him. "Nathan," Bishop smiled warmly. "Excellent timing. I was beginning to wonder if you'd make your entrance. Wanted to see how it played out." Nathan moved to stand beside Bishop, keeping his weapon trained on Marcus. "You really should have stayed," retired Cole. "This whole mess could have been avoided." "Could it?" Marcus's voice was steady despite the pain. "Could Victoria's death have been avoided, Emma growing up without a mother?" "Collateral damage, the cost of doing business." Nathan shrugged, utterly unmoved. Sterling Technologies was never meant to be run by outsiders. When Victoria took over after Michael died, she contaminated everything he built. The company should have been mine. "So you sold out your own sister, your own niece." "I'm securing my family's legacy." Victoria never understood what she had: a defense company worth billions, connections to every major military contractor in the world. She wanted to keep it small, ethical, focused. Nathan spat the last word like a curse. "Bishop understands vision. Together we'll take Sterling where it was always meant to go." Marcus looked at Lily, saw her watching with wide, frightened eyes. She didn't understand all of this. How could she? But she understood enough. She understood that bad men had her daddy, and he was bleeding. "Daddy, it's okay, sweetheart. Daddy's going to get us out of this." Bishop laughed. "Touching, but I'm afraid Daddy's run out of options." He gestured to Nathan. "Take the girl somewhere secure. I want to have a conversation with Mr. Cole before we finish this." Nathan holstered his weapon and moved toward Lily. She shrank back in the chair, pulling against her bonds, and something inside Marcus snapped. Wounded, outnumbered, outgunned. None of it mattered. He moved. The pain became fuel as he launched himself at Nathan's shoulder, screaming, but legs driving forward. They collided before the traitor could react, Marcus's momentum carrying them both into the wall. He drove his elbow into Nathan's face once, twice, felt bone crack beneath the impact. Bishop raised his weapon to fire, But Marcus was already spinning, using Nathan's body as a shield. The shot went wide. Marcus stripped Nathan's gun from his holster, dropped the man with a knee to the temple, and came up firing. Bishop dove behind a desk, returning fire. Bullets sparked off metal. Marcus moved laterally, putting himself between the shooter and his daughter. Lily, close your eyes. Don't look. Daddy, I'm scared. I know, baby. Close your eyes and count to 10. When you open them, this will be over. She squeezed her eyes shut, lips moving silently. 1, 2, 3. Marcus stopped thinking about pain, stopped thinking about consequences, became what Michael had trained him to be, a weapon without conscience, a force without mercy. He rounded the desk on the left while Bishop expected right. The older man tried to adjust, too slow by half a second. Marcus knocked the gun aside, drove his palm into Bishop's nose, felt cartilage shatter. A knee to the groin doubled the man over. An elbow to the back of the skull dropped him to the ground. 7 seconds. Target neutralized. Marcus stood over Conrad Bishop, chest heaving, blood dripping from his shoulder onto the concrete floor. The man who had killed Michael. The man who had threatened Lily. The man who had haunted his nightmares for 5 years. His finger tightened on the trigger. Do it. Bishop's voice was a wet gurgle through the blood streaming from his broken nose. That's what you are, isn't it? A killer. A weapon. Pull the trigger and prove me right. Marcus thought about Rachel dying slowly, making him promise to be better. Thought about Lily counting to 10 with her eyes closed, trusting him to make the world safe again. Thought about Michael bleeding out in the Afghan dust, asking him to protect the people who mattered. He lowered the weapon. You're wrong, I'm a father. And fathers don't become monsters in front of their children. He reversed the pistol and brought the butt down on Bishop's temple. The man went limp, unconscious, but alive. Justice would come, but it would come through courts, through evidence, through the system Michael had believed in. Marcus turned to Lily. You can open your eyes now, sweetheart. She saw the bodies on the ground, saw her father standing bloody but upright, and burst into tears. Marcus cut her bonds, gathered her into his arms, held her so tight he thought he might break them both. She clung to him, sobbing into his chest, and he let his own tears fall into her golden hair. I've got you. Daddy's got you. You're safe now. Daddy, you're bleeding. It's just a scratch, baby. Daddy's had worse. He pressed his lips to her forehead. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you had to see that. Those men wanted to hurt me. They can't hurt you anymore. Nobody can hurt you anymore. Outside sirens began to wail. Agent Chen's team right on schedule. The cavalry arriving after the battle was won. Marcus carried his daughter out of the warehouse, past the unconscious guards, past the blood and the violence and the consequences of choices made long ago. The night air hit his face like absolution, cold and clean and full of possibility. Victoria was waiting by the perimeter, held back by federal agents fighting to reach them. When she saw Marcus emerge with Lily in his arms, something broke in her expression. Relief, joy, grief, love, all tangled together in a single sob. She ran to them, wrapped her arms around both of them, and for a long moment, the three of them stood together in the flashing red and blue lights, holding each other as if the world might end if they let go. You came back, Victoria whispered. I promised. Nathan, inside, alive. He'll face justice. Victoria nodded, tears streaming down her face. I can't believe my own brother. Bishop got to him, offered him everything he wanted. Marcus shifted Lily in his arms, felt the girl's grip tighten around his neck. Some people can be bought. Some can't. Now we know which one Nathan was. Agent Chen approached, badge, visible expression, carefully professional. Mr. Cole, we need to get you medical attention, and we need statements. Tomorrow. Marcus's voice left no room for argument. Tonight, I'm taking my daughter home. The agent looked like she wanted to protest, then saw something in Marcus's eyes that changed her mind. She stepped back, nodded once. Tomorrow, my office, 9 a.m. We'll be there. He started walking toward his truck, Victoria falling into step beside him, Lily's arms still locked around his neck. Behind them, federal agents swarmed the warehouse, beginning the process of sorting through the wreckage of Conrad Bishop's empire. It wasn't over. Marcus knew that. There were still questions to answer, evidence to present, trials to endure. Demidov was still out there. The conspiracy Michael had died to expose was wounded, but not dead. But for tonight, just for tonight, they were safe. His daughter was safe. And that was enough. The drive home passed in silence, Lily asleep against his chest, Victoria's hand resting on his arm, as if she needed constant proof that he was real. Marcus watched the city lights blur past and thought about the man he had been, the man he had become, and the man he might still have the chance to be. Some promises outlive us. Michael's voice echoing across 5 years of grief and guilt and desperate hope. Marcus finally understood what his friend had meant. The promise wasn't just about protection. It wasn't just about keeping Victoria and Emma safe. It was about living, really living, even after everything seemed lost. It was about finding love again, building family again, believing in the future again. Michael had seen that in Marcus, even when Marcus couldn't see it himself, had known somehow that the broken soldier would heal, would grow, would become something more than the weapon the military had made him. Victoria's hand tightened on his arm and Marcus covered it with his own. "When this is over," he said quietly, "we need to talk about Michael, about us, about what comes next." "I'd like that." Her voice was soft, weighted with meaning. "But Marcus, whatever we decide, whatever this becomes, I want you to know something." "What?" "Michael would have wanted this, not just for me, but for you. He always said you deserved more than the life the military gave you. A family, a future, someone to love." She squeezed his hand. "He would be glad it's you." Marcus didn't trust himself to respond. Instead, he lifted her hand to his lips, pressed a kiss against her knuckles, and kept driving into the night. They reached home at 3 in the morning. Marcus carried Lily to her bed, tucked her in, sat beside her until her breathing deepened into true sleep. The girl's face was peaceful now, the terror of the evening already fading into the resilience of childhood. She would have questions tomorrow. Difficult questions with difficult answers. But she would ask them, and he would answer them, and together they would figure out how to move forward. That was what families did. Victoria waited for him in the living room, 2 cups of coffee steaming on the table. She had found his first aid kit, laid it out with the efficiency of someone who had patched up wounds before. "Sit. Let me look at your shoulder." "It's fine." "Sit." He sat. Her hands were gentle as she cleaned the wound, applied antiseptic, bandaged the entry and exit points. The bullet had gone clean through, missing anything vital by millimeters. Another scar to add to the collection. "You should go to a hospital." "I will, in the morning, after we talk to Chen." Victoria finished the bandage but didn't move away. Her hands rested on his shoulders, warm through the thin fabric of his shirt. "Nathan said something, in the warehouse, before you came in." Her voice was barely a whisper. "He said Michael's death was necessary, that the technology was more important than any one person." "Nathan was wrong." "Was he?" She met his eyes, searching for something. "Michael died protecting Project Sentinel. You know, you almost died tonight doing the same thing. At what point does the mission become more important than the people fighting it?" Marcus considered the question, turned it over in his mind like the compass Michael had given him. Never. The moment the mission matters more than the people, that's when we become what we're fighting against. That's what Bishop never understood. He reached up, covered her hands with his own. "Michael didn't die for technology. He died for me, for the team, for the idea that some things are worth protecting regardless of the what. Things like family. Things like family." Victoria's eyes glistened in the low light. "Michael wrote me letters. From the field. He never talked about the mission, never talked about danger. But in the last one, the one that arrived after he was gone, he talked about you." And what did he say? "He said if anything happened to him, you were the one person he trusted to make things right, to protect what he loved, to finish what he started." A tear slipped down her cheek. "I didn't understand then. I thought he meant the technology, the company, the mission. But he meant us. He meant Emma. He meant the family he was leaving behind." Marcus pulled her close, let her cry against his chest, felt his own tears burning behind his eyes. "I'm sorry it took me so long to understand. You're here now, that's what matters." They held each other in the quiet of the early morning, 2 people who had lost everything, finding in each other the possibility of something new. Outside, the sun was beginning to rise. A new day, a new beginning. But Marcus knew the war wasn't over. Bishop was in custody, but Demidov was still out there. The conspiracy ran deeper than one corrupt businessman in his desperate schemes. And somewhere in the shadows, someone was watching, waiting, planning the next move in a game that had been running longer than any of them knew. The phone rang at 6 a.m. Marcus answered on the second ring. Cole? Agent Chen's voice was tense, urgent. We have a problem. What kind of problem? Bishop is dead. Someone got to him in federal custody, made it look like suicide, but it wasn't. No, it wasn't. A long pause. Demidov knows we're coming. He's cleaning up loose ends. Marcus looked at Victoria at Lily's closed door at the home he had built from the ashes of his old life. Then we'll have to be faster. He ended the call and began once again to plan for war. The 72 hours following Bishop's death passed in a blur of tension and tactical preparation. Marcus relocated Victoria and the children to a mountain cabin outside Portland, a safe house Colonel Hayes had secured through channels that existed nowhere on official record. Armed personnel swept the perimeter every 4 hours. Motion sensors covered every approach through the dense pine forest. Thermal cameras watched the tree line day and night, tracking deer and elk and the occasional curious black bear. None of it felt like enough, not with Demidov still breathing. The cabin itself was modest but defensible, built in the 1970s by a survivalist who had prepared for wars that never came. Thick log walls, reinforced windows, a basement stocked with supplies that could last months. Marcus had added his own modifications in the first 24 hours, secondary escape routes through the forest, cached weapons at predetermined points, communication equipment that bounced signals through satellites no government officially acknowledged. Lily and Emma adapted to their new environment with the resilience that only children possessed. They built snow forts in the clearing behind the cabin, staged elaborate battles with pine cone ammunition, and declared themselves queens of the mountain kingdom. Their laughter drifted through the windows, like music from a world where danger was just a word in the storybooks. Marcus watched them from the kitchen window, coffee growing cold in his hands. Victoria found him there on the second morning, dark circles under her eyes betraying sleepless nights despite the relative safety. They don't understand what's happening. Her voice was soft, almost wondering. Part of me wants to keep it that way forever. That's called good parenting. Is it? Or is it just delaying the inevitable? She moved to stand beside him close enough that their shoulders touched. Emma asked me yesterday why Uncle Nathan wasn't coming to visit anymore. I didn't know what to say. What did you tell her? That Uncle Nathan made some bad choices and needed time to think about them. Victoria's laugh was hollow. She accepted that more easily than I expected. Children understand consequences better than we give them credit for. Agent Chen's sedan appeared on the access road at 9:15, kicking up gravel as it wound through the narrow mountain approach. Marcus had her vehicle flagged in the security system, but he still watched through binoculars until he confirmed her face behind the wheel. Trust in his experience needed constant verification. She carried 3 accordion files stuffed with photographs, financial records, and a timeline that stretched back further than Marcus had imagined. Victoria made coffee while Chen spread the documents across the kitchen table, transforming the rustic surface into a war room. Bishop was never the architect. Chen tapped a surveillance photograph showing a distinguished silver-haired man at what appeared to be a diplomatic reception in Vienna. Crystal chandeliers reflected in champagne glasses, power brokers in evening wear, and at the center of it all, a face that radiated cultured menace. He was middle management at best. The real operation belongs to this man. Marcus studied the image. Something about the set of the jaw, the cold calculation in the eyes, tugged at memories he had tried to bury. Who is he, Victor? Viktor Demidov, officially retired Russian intelligence decorated veteran of operations, were still not cleared to discuss. Unofficially, he controls one of the largest private military networks in Eastern Europe. Chen's jaw tightened, professional composure cracking slightly. He was the buyer in Horizon, the one Bishop sold your team's position to, the one who ordered the ambush that killed your people. The name landed in Marcus's chest like a hollow point round, fragmenting on impact, sending shrapnel through 5 years of carefully constructed numbness. He had wondered in the darkest hours who had been on the other end of Bishop's betrayal. What kind of man could order the deaths of soldiers he had never met for profit he would never need? Now he had a face, Now he had a target. How deep does this network run? Deep enough to touch Congress, defense contractors on 3 continents, intelligence agencies in countries we consider allies. Chen pulled another file, this one thick with banking records and corporate registrations. Demidov has been building this infrastructure for over a decade, patient as a spider waiting for the right opportunity. Project Sentinel was always his endgame. With that technology, he could revolutionize private military operations worldwide. Governments would become customers instead of regulators. Victoria set down her coffee cup with more force than necessary, ceramic striking wood like a gavel. Michael spent 3 years developing Sentinel. He believed it could save lives, protect civilians, change how conflicts were managed. Her voice cracked on the words, old grief resurfacing. He never knew he was painting a target on his own back. He knew. Marcus spoke quietly, but both women turned toward him, sensing the weight behind the words. The night before, Horace and Michael pulled me aside, told me he was being watched, that someone inside the operation was feeding information to outside parties. He was building a case, gathering evidence, preparing to expose the whole network. A pause, memories flickering like old film. That's why Bishop had to silence him. Michael was weeks away from bringing everything down. Chen absorbed this information with the practiced calm of someone accustomed to revelations that rewrote history. Do you still have that evidence? Hidden. Michael gave me a backup drive the night before the mission. I've kept it secure for 5 years without accessing the contents. That drive could be the key to dismantling the entire network. Chen leaned forward, intensity sharpening her features. But we have a more immediate problem. Demidov knows his operation is compromised. Bishop eliminated Nathan, arrested, evidence mounting daily. He's going to make a move to protect what remains. What kind of move? The kind that eliminates witnesses and destroys evidence before they can be used against him. Chen extracted a final photograph from her files. Tomorrow, Sterling Technologies holds its annual board meeting. We've confirmed that Demidov has a representative on that board. Someone who's been feeding him information for years, someone positioned to influence corporate decisions at the highest level. Victoria went pale, intuition racing ahead of confirmation. Who? Chen slid the photograph across the table. Eleanor Sterling, silver hair styled with architectural precision, diamonds catching light at her throat and wrists. The woman who had married Victoria's father, raised Nathan after the wedding, and carried herself with the unshakable confidence of old money. That's impossible. Victoria's voice was barely a whispered denial, fighting against evidence. Eleanor is difficult, cold, judgmental about everything from my career choices to my parenting. But she would never betray the family. She would never. The financial records are unambiguous. Chen's voice was gentle but firm, delivering truth like medicine that would hurt before it healed. She's been receiving payments through shell companies registered in Cyprus for at least 5 years. Board decisions leaked before implementation. Technology timelines shared with competitors. Security protocols compromised before they could be tested. A pause. She's the reason Bishop knew exactly when and how to move against you. She's the reason Michael's investigation failed to reach the right people. Marcus watched Victoria process the betrayal, watched her rebuild her understanding of the past 5 years around this new and terrible axis. Her stepmother, her brother, the family she had married into, rotted from within like a tree that looked healthy until the wind came. He wanted to reach for her, to offer comfort through contact, but some wounds required space before they could be touched. Some betrayals needed to breathe before they could begin to heal. What's the play? We use the board meeting. Eleanor doesn't know we've connected her to Demidov yet. If we can force her to contact him in real time, confirm the connection while we're monitoring communications, we'll have enough probable cause for international warrants. Chen's eyes moved to Victoria, seeking something beyond professional cooperation. But we need you there. As CEO, you're the only one who can create the pressure that forces her hand. Anyone else, she'll stonewall. With you making direct accusations, she'll panic. And panicked people make mistakes. Absolutely not. Marcus's response was immediate, instinctive, protective in ways he didn't fully examine. You want to put her in a room with people who've been trying to kill her for months. People who have already demonstrated they'll target children to get what they want. I want to end this permanently. Victoria's voice cut through his objection like a blade finding the gap in armor. Chen is right. If we don't stop Demidov now, he'll find another bishop, another Eleanor, another way into the company. He'll keep coming until there's nothing left to protect. She met Marcus's eyes, and he saw something there that went beyond determination. Saw the woman Michael had loved, the mother who would die for her daughter, the CEO who had built an empire from grief. This company is Michael's legacy. The technology he created, the people he hired, the vision he articulated. I won't let his sacrifice mean nothing. I won't let them win. The words echoed something Michael had said in a valley, half a world away, bleeding out in Afghan dust while Marcus screamed for medics who would never arrive in time. Some things are worth protecting, regardless of cost. Some prices are worth paying even when you can't afford them. If we do this, we do it my way. Full tactical support in adjacent buildings. Multiple extraction routes mapped and tested. Communication equipment that can't be jammed or traced. Marcus held Chen's gaze, letting her see the soldier beneath the civilian clothes. And I'm in that room with Victoria. Not as security theater, as someone prepared to remove threats with extreme prejudice. That can be arranged. We'll have teams positioned throughout the Sterling building, ready to move at your signal. No credentials, no paper trail. If this operation goes sideways, I need to be a ghost. Someone who was never officially present, never officially involved. Chen hesitated, bureaucratic instincts warring with operational necessity. Then she nodded. Understood. You'll have everything you need. The meeting adjourned, but the weight of tomorrow pressed down like a physical force, compressing time until minutes felt like hours and hours felt like seconds. Marcus found Victoria on the cabin's back porch that evening, watching the sun paint the mountains in shades of amber and rose and deep purple. The girls are finally asleep. She didn't turn when he approached, but her shoulders relaxed slightly at his presence. Lily told Emma that her daddy catches bad guys for a living. Emma said that sounded scary. Lily said it was, but her daddy always wins because he loves her more than the bad guys love being bad. Kids see things simply. Sometimes I envy that. Do you think we can win tomorrow? I think we don't have a choice but to try. And I think the people who underestimate us have consistently regretted that mistake. Victoria turned to face him, and he saw something in her eyes that had been building for days, maybe weeks. Not fear, not uncertainty. Something warmer, more vulnerable, infinitely more dangerous. Marcus, I need to tell you something. Before tomorrow, before everything changes again, and we're back to survival mode. What? These past weeks, having you here, watching you with Lily, seeing who you really are underneath the soldier and the grief and the guilt you carry. She paused, searching for words adequate to the weight of what she was trying to say. I thought I knew what love felt like. I thought I'd already experienced it, already lost it, already closed that chapter of my life. But being with you, I'm starting to think maybe love isn't a chapter. Maybe it's a book with more pages than we expect. Marcus felt the ground shift beneath him, tectonic plates of assumption grinding against unexpected reality. Victoria, I'm not asking for anything. Not yet. I know everything is complicated. Michael's memory, your promise to him, the fact that we met because of violence and might not survive what's coming. She reached out, touched his hand, and he felt the contact like electricity. I just needed you to know, whatever happens tomorrow, I needed you to understand that you matter to me. Not as Michael's friend, not as my protector, as you, as Marcus, as the man who makes me feel like the future might be worth reaching for. He looked at this woman who had lost so much and still found the courage to reach towards something new. Thought about Rachel's last words, her insistence that he deserved happiness even after she was gone. Thought about Michael bleeding out in the dust, asking him to protect the people who mattered most. I'm not good at this. The admission came harder than any combat confession. After Rachel died, I closed everything off. Built walls so high, I forgot there was another side. Forgot what it felt like to want something I couldn't lose. I know. I did the same thing after Michael. Victoria squeezed his hand, her grip warm and strong. Maybe that's why we understand each other. Maybe that's why this feels possible when nothing else has. Maybe. He lifted her hand, pressed his lips to her knuckles, felt her pulse quicken against his mouth. Let's get through tomorrow. Then we figure out what comes next. Together. Together. They stood in the fading light, hands intertwined, drawing strength from contact that promised more than either was ready to articulate. Tomorrow would bring confrontation and danger and consequences none of them could fully predict. But tonight there was this, a beginning, a possibility, a reason to fight harder than ever before. The Sterling Technologies boardroom occupied the entire top floor of the headquarters building, all glass walls and panoramic views and the quiet hum of corporate power. 12 leather chairs surrounded a mahogany table that had witnessed decades of calculated warfare, hostile takeovers, and strategic mergers and the slow accumulation of wealth beyond imagining. Today's battle would leave deeper scars than any quarterly earnings report. Marcus arrived at dawn, moving through the building with credentials Chen had fabricated overnight. He swept for surveillance devices, finding 3 that shouldn't have been there, and disabling them with practiced efficiency. He mapped sightlines from every window, identified structural weaknesses that could become entry points, planned extractions for scenarios ranging from orderly retreat to catastrophic collapse. FBI tactical teams held positions in adjacent buildings, invisible to casual observation, but ready to move at his signal. Chen monitored communications from a van in the parking garage 4 floors below her, equipment capable of intercepting everything from cell phones to encrypted satellite links. The trap was set. Now they needed the prey to walk into it. Board members filtered in throughout the morning, each one cataloged by Marcus's trained eye. Harrison, the jolly chairman of the compensation committee, nervous energy suggesting he knew something was coming. Patterson, the former military contractor, watching everyone with suspicion that bordered on paranoia. Yamamoto, the technology consultant, absorbed in her tablet and oblivious to undercurrents. 6 others Marcus classified as neutral, unlikely to act unless the outcome became clear. And Eleanor Sterling, entering last, moving with the confidence of someone who had never questioned her place in any room she occupied. 62 years old, silver hair styled by professionals, diamonds catching light with every gesture. She acknowledged Marcus with the barest nod, cataloging him as furniture security beneath sustained attention. That assumption would be her undoing. Victoria arrived at 9 sharp, dressed in a charcoal suit that announced power without apology. Only Marcus saw the slight tremor in her hands as she set her briefcase on the table. Only Marcus knew the weight she carried into this room, the ghosts of husband and brother, and every betrayal that had led to this moment. Thank you all for accommodating this emergency session. Her voice carried authority honed by years of leadership, projecting confidence she might not feel. Recent events require transparency. I wanted to address the board directly before speculation becomes rumor and rumor becomes panic. Eleanor's expression remained carefully neutral, but her fingers tightened almost imperceptibly on her pen. We appreciate your candor, Victoria. The situation with Nathan has been distressing for the entire family. Nathan's arrest is only part of what I need to discuss. Victoria withdrew a thick folder from her briefcase, documents that had taken weeks to compile and verify. Over the past month, I've discovered that Sterling Technologies has been compromised at its highest levels. Not by outside actors alone, but by members of this board. People we trusted with the company's future have been selling that future to our enemies. Murmurs rippled through the room like wind through wheat. Harrison shifted uncomfortably. Patterson's eyes narrowed with something approaching respect. Eleanor's composure flickered hairline cracks in a carefully constructed facade. Those are serious accusations. Harrison's voice wavered between outrage and fear. The kind that require extraordinary evidence. I have extraordinary evidence. Victoria slid documents across the polished wood, watching them fan out like cards in a high-stakes game. Financial records showing unauthorized transfers to offshore accounts in Cyprus, the Caymans, and jurisdictions specifically chosen for opacity. Communication logs between board members and foreign nationals with documented ties to hostile intelligence services, and testimony from Conrad Bishop recorded in federal custody before his death, identifying his accomplices by name. Silence crashed down like a physical weight. Eleanor's hand drifted toward her Hermes handbag, the movement slow, casual, utterly unremarkable to anyone not watching for exactly that tell. Marcus shifted his weight, prepared for what might come next. Bishop was a desperate man facing multiple federal indictments. Eleanor's voice remained steady, but something cold had entered her eyes. calculation replacing composure. Anything he said should be viewed with appropriate skepticism. Dying men tell convenient lies to harm those they blame for their failures. Perhaps, but financial records don't lie. Wire transfers don't lie. The pattern of information leaks perfectly correlated with board meeting schedules doesn't lie. Victoria met her stepmother's gaze without flinching, without blinking, without any trace of the girl who had once sought this woman's approval. You've been working with Victor Demidov for 5 years, Eleanor, feeding him information about Project Sentinel, helping him identify threats to his operation, helping him target anyone who got too close to the truth. The name detonated in the room like a fragmentation grenade. Several board members exchanged confused glances, the name meaningless to them. But Eleanor's reaction was unmistakable color, draining from her face, the hand moving toward her purse, freezing mid-motion. I have no idea what you're talking about. I think you do. I think you've been betraying this company, this family, everything Michael built for half a decade. Victoria's voice hardened grief, transmuting into fury. I think you helped Demidov identify Michael as a threat. I think you provided the information that made the Horison ambush possible. I think you're the reason my husband is dead. For a long moment, nobody breathed. The accusation hung in the air, impossible to ignore, impossible to retract. Then Eleanor's mask crumbled completely. You ungrateful child. The words emerged like venom, years of suppressed contempt finally released. Everything I did was for this family, for the company your precious Michael never deserved to touch. He was a soldier playing businessman, a nobody who married above his station and never understood what he had stumbled into. So you sold him out, sold us all out. For what money? You didn't need power you already had. I did what was necessary. Eleanor's voice went flat, stripped of all pretense, revealing the steel beneath the silk. Demidov offered resources and connections Michael could never have imagined. Partnerships with governments, contracts worth billions, a seat at tables where real decisions are made. Sterling Technologies was stagnating under his leadership. Under yours, it needed vision. It needed someone willing to make difficult choices. It needed protection from people like you. Protection, a harsh laugh, ugly and triumphant. Look around this room, Victoria. Half these people have taken money from Demidov's network. You think exposing me won't bring down everyone else? Won't destroy the company you're so desperate to save? Eleanor's hand closed around something in her purse and Marcus moved. He reached her before she could complete the motion. Years of training compressing into a single fluid movement. His hand closed on her wrist, applying precise pressure to the nerve cluster that would force her fingers to release. A compact pistol clattered onto the table chrome, and deadly and utterly unexpected in a boardroom setting. The room erupted into chaos. Board members shouting, scrambling for exits, chairs crashing backward as panic overrode decorum. Marcus maintained his grip on Eleanor as FBI agents burst through the doors, tactical gear and badges, and controlled chaos flooding the space. It's over, Eleanor. There's nowhere left to run. You think this ends with me? She spat the words at him, all pretense of civility abandoned. Demidov has resources beyond anything you can imagine. People in positions you'd never suspect. He'll burn Sterling Technologies to ash before surrendering what he's built. Maybe, but he'll do it without your help. They pulled her from his grip, handcuffs clicking shut, rights being read in flat professional tones. Around the room, other agents detained board members, flagged in Bishop's records, the carefully constructed conspiracy collapsing in real time. Victoria stood amid the chaos, watching her stepmother being led away, face unreadable. Marcus moved to her side, positioning himself between her and the remaining uncertainty. You did it. We did it. But her voice was hollow, victory tasting of ash. Michael, Nathan, Eleanor, how much more family do I have to lose before this ends? You haven't lost in everything. Emma's safe. Lily's safe. You're safe. He took her hand, felt her fingers interlock with his. And you still have me. She looked at him, tears forming but refusing to fall. Do I? You do, for as long as you want. The cleanup operation consumed the rest of the day and most of the night. Statements taken and retaken as new evidence emerged. Documents seized, computers imaged the forensic reconstruction of 5 years of betrayal. Chen coordinated with federal prosecutors building cases that would take months to fully develop, but had already achieved their primary objective. By evening, Marcus and Victoria stood alone in the boardroom, looking out at Portland's lights flickering to life below. The city continued its routines oblivious to the earthquake that had just reshaped power structures invisible to ordinary people. Chen says Demidov went dark within hours of Eleanor's arrest. Victoria broke the silence first. Shut down communication networks, moved assets through channels we can't trace. They're hunting him, but he's still out there, still dangerous, still holding grudges. Yes. Marcus absorbed this, filled it under problems requiring future attention. He's wounded now. His American network has destroyed key assets, arrested evidence mounting. Rebuilding will take years if he manages it at all. And if he comes back, if he decides revenge is worth the risk, then we'll be ready. We'll always be ready. Victoria turned from the window, faced him fully, and Marcus saw the shift in her expression. Saw the CEO armor falling away, revealing the woman beneath. Marcus, these past weeks have been the hardest of my life. Betrayal after betrayal, danger around every corner, my daughter's safety hanging by threads I couldn't see. She stepped closer. And somehow in the middle of all that chaos, you became the one constant I could depend on. The one person who never wavered, never compromised, never made me doubt which side you were on. I was keeping a promise. It was more than that. We both know it was more than that. She reached up, touched his face, her palm warm against his cheek. I'm not asking you to decide anything tonight. But when this settles, when we can finally breathe without checking for threats, I want to build something with you. A family. A future. Not because Michael asked you to protect me, but because I love you. Because somewhere between the gunfire and the revelations, I fell in love with who you are. The words hung in the air between them, irrevocable, demanding response. Marcus thought about everything that had brought them here. Death and betrayal and impossible choices. Rachel asking him to find happiness with her last breath. Michael asking him to protect what mattered most. The long years of hiding from his own heart, from his own capacity for connection. I love you too. The admission came easier than he expected, as if the words had been waiting for permission. I think I have since that first morning when you stood in my kitchen, wearing my shirt and demanding answers I wasn't ready to give. Victoria laughed, a sound bright with relief and release. I was terrified that morning. Terrified and confused and completely out of my depth. So was I. Still am a little. Of what? Of wanting something this much. Of finally having something I could lose. He pulled her close, felt her settle against him like a key finding its lock. But I've spent 5 years running from risk, from connection, from the possibility of pain. I'm tired of running. She kissed him then, and the kiss was different from before. Not desperate or fearful, but certain. A promise made with lips instead of words. When they finally separated, both were breathing hard, both were smiling. What now, she whispered. Now we go home. See the girls. Start figuring out how to be a family. He brushed hair from her face, marveling at the simple intimacy of the gesture. The rest can wait. The months that followed were a gradual unwinding tension, releasing in increments as the immediate threat receded. Federal prosecutors built their cases methodically, Eleanor and the compromised board members facing charges that would keep them entangled in legal proceedings for years. Demidov remained at large, but diminished his network in shambles, his reach significantly shortened. Marcus sold the small house where he had hidden for 5 years and moved into Victoria's home, a spacious modern structure in Portland's West Hills. The transition was surprisingly smooth. Lily and Emma had already declared themselves sisters, and the practical questions of merged households proved less complicated than the emotional ones. They took it slowly, deliberately building trust through accumulated days rather than dramatic gestures. Breakfast together before school. Evenings on the back deck, watching the girls play while the sun set over the mountains. Conversations that lasted until midnight, filling in the gaps of each other's histories, learning the rhythms of shared life. 4 months after Eleanor's arrest, on a spring evening, when cherry blossoms drifted like pink snow through the neighborhood, Victoria found Marcus on that same back deck, staring at the mountains with an expression she had learned to recognize. You're thinking about something serious. I'm thinking about the future. He turned to face her, and she saw something in his eyes she hadn't seen before. Certainty, decision, about what I want it to look like. And what do you want this, you, the girls, everything we've been building these past months? He reached into his pocket, withdrew a small box. I know it's fast. I know there are 1,000 reasons to wait, but I've spent too much of my life waiting for things that never came. I don't want to wait anymore. Victoria's breath caught as he opened the box, revealing a simple diamond ring, elegant and understated. Victoria Sterling, will you some? Yes. The word came out before he could finish, tumbling over itself in its eagerness. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto her finger, and she pulled him into a kiss that tasted of joy and certainty and the promise of tomorrow. Inside, watching through the window, Lily turned to Emma with a grin. Told you it would work. You didn't do anything. I wished really hard. That counts. The wedding took place 6 weeks later in a small chapel outside Portland, surrounded by cherry trees in full bloom. The guest list was deliberately intimate, Colonel Hayes looking uncomfortable in civilian formal wear. Agent Chen professional armor exchanged for a simple blue dress. Mrs. Chen from the old neighborhood dabbing her eyes before the ceremony even began. A handful of friends who had proven trustworthy through fire. Marcus stood at the altar in the suit Victoria had helped him choose, hands steady, despite the magnitude of the moment. Hayes clapped him on the shoulder, the gesture carrying weight beyond its physical force. Never thought I'd see you here, Cole. That makes 2 of us, sir. Michael would have approved. You know that, right? He'd be standing where I am giving you grief about your haircut, telling embarrassing stories from deployment. I know. Marcus's throat tightened around the words. I wish he could be. The music changed and everyone turned toward the entrance. Lily and Emma came first, scattering petals with fierce concentration. Their matching dresses, a compromise negotiated over 3 separate shopping trips. They had insisted on identical, everything shoes, ribbons, even the tiny pearl earrings Victoria's mother had worn decades ago. Then Victoria appeared radiant in simple white, her dark hair loose around her shoulders. When she smiled at Marcus, the world contracted to just the 2 of them. Everything else fading to background noise. The ceremony was traditional, ancient words, given new meaning by everything they had survived to reach this moment. When the officiant asked for objections, Marcus felt a flicker of something, awareness of absence of the friend who should have been standing beside him, but nothing materialized except supportive silence. You may kiss the bride. He did thoroughly while the girls giggled and the adults applauded. When they finally separated, Victoria was laughing through tears, joy and grief and hope tangled together in a single moment. We made it. We made it. The reception unfolded in a restaurant. They both loved speeches that drew laughter and tears in equal measure, dancing that prioritized enthusiasm over technique. Lily demanded spins until she was dizzy, then insisted on teaching Emma the same sequence. Hayes attempted a waltz with Chen, their formal training, creating unexpected elegance. As evening deepened, Marcus found himself on the restaurant's small terrace, watching city lights emerge against the darkening sky. Victoria joined him, champagne flute in hand. Penny, for your thoughts. Thinking about how far we've come. 8 months ago, I was pushing a mop, pretending to be invisible, convinced that was all I deserved. And now I'm a husband, father of 2, key witness in multiple federal prosecutions. He smiled. That last part wasn't in the original life plan. Plans change, sometimes for the better. They stood in comfortable silence, watching stars appear one by one. Marcus, Victoria's voice shifted, carrying weight. There's something I haven't told you. I wasn't sure how or when, but tonight feels right. What is it? 3 weeks ago, I received a message, encrypted, routed through servers that shouldn't exist. Chen's people spent days verifying it wasn't a trap. Victoria turned to face him, and he saw the magnitude of what she was about to say reflected in her eyes. It was from Michael. The world tilted beneath Marcus's feet. He's alive. He's been alive this whole time, working deep cover against Demidov's network. The death in Horason was staged, part of an operation so classified that even his own commanders didn't know the full truth. Marcus's mind raced, trying to reconcile 5 years of grief with this impossible revelation. The memorial service, the folded flag, the nightmares where he reached for Michael and found only empty air. Why didn't he reach out before? He couldn't. Any communication risked exposing him, risked Demidov tracing connections back to me and Emma. He stayed dead to keep us safe, to keep you safe. Victoria's eyes glistened. He's been watching Marcus, watching you protect us, watching what we've become. He asked me to tell you he's proud, that he trusted you with everything that mattered, and you exceeded every expectation he had. Where is he now? Closing in on Demidov. The network collapse we triggered gave him the opening he needed to move. He thinks it ends within the year, maybe sooner. She took Marcus's hands, her grip warm and certain. He also said something else. Something I need you to hear. What? That what we have, you and me, this family we've built, is exactly what he hoped would happen. That loving me doesn't betray him. That finding happiness together honors his sacrifice instead of diminishing it. Her voice broke slightly. He said he couldn't have chosen better for us himself. Marcus stood silent, 5 years of guilt cracking like ice in spring thaw. Michael alive. Michael blessing what they had become. Michael still fighting from shadows, still protecting the people he loved, through absence as much as presence. When can we see him? He didn't say, but he promised that when Demidov is finished, when the threat is truly ended, he'll come home. Victoria squeezed his hands. Until then, we live the life he wanted us to have. We love each other without apology. We raise our daughters to be strong and kind. We build the future he sacrificed so much to make possible. And when he returns, then we figure that out together, all of us, as the family we've become. Marcus pulled her close, holding on to the present, while the future rearranged itself into new configurations. Michael alive changed everything and nothing simultaneously. The love he felt for Victoria remained constant. The family they had created remained real. The vows they had spoken remained true. Behind them, through the restaurant windows, Lily and Emma were teaching Hayes an elaborate dance routine they had choreographed themselves. The old soldier moved with surprising grace, following their instructions with the seriousness of a military operation. Marcus watched his daughters, both of them, his daughters now, in every way that mattered, and felt something he had almost forgotten existed. Hope. Not the desperate kind that clung to impossible outcomes. Real hope grounded in evidence. They had survived assassination attempts, family betrayal, revelations that shattered everything they thought they knew. And they were still standing, still together, still building toward tomorrow. Ready to go back inside? Victoria asked. Almost. Marcus kissed her forehead. Just want to remember this moment, how it feels, the taste of it, in case you need it later. In case of anything, this moment, us the girls, the life we're building, this is what makes everything else worthwhile, what makes the fighting mean something. Victoria smiled, soft and knowing. Then let's make more moments worth remembering. They rejoined the celebration, embracing the beautiful chaos of family. Lily demanded another dance. Emma insisted Marcus try the chocolate fountain. Hayes raised a toast to absent friends and present blessings, his voice rough with emotion he rarely showed. And outside, unseen, a car sat in the shadows across the street. Inside, a man with familiar eyes watched the celebration through the restaurant's windows. He raised his own glass in silent salute, smiled at the family he had helped create, and drove away into the night. Michael Hayes had one more mission to complete, but his people were in the best possible hands. The war would end when it ended. Until then, life would continue. Love would grow, children would laugh, and the bonds forged through fire would hold against whatever storms still gathered on distant horizons. Some promises outlive the people who make them. Others become the foundation for something entirely new.